Hello, YouTube. It's your boy YGO King of Scrubs here, and I know it's been a minute, and I'm coming at you with a bit of a topic that I've been seeing a lot of lately. Kind of want to throw my 2 cents in on. Is Yu-Gi-Oh too hard to get into, and is it too expensive to get into? Um, that's a good question. And while at my local area, it's real easy for new players to get in. They have people like me and the community around them to help them get in. Trying to get into Yu-Gi-Oh on your own, no friends help or anything like that, has been extremely difficult, especially if you want to even get into playing at a tournament. That is something that is ridiculous. Our onboarding experience has grown by leaps and bounds over the last few years. Master Duel has helped that. Downloading the game, jumping into the tutorials, learning the basics. All really good, all really easy, all really simple. I think one of the big problems is it doesn't teach you anything about modern Yu-Gi-Oh! It teaches you just the basics, doesn't throw you into a duel with any kind of like skill to teach you the back and forth. It might teach you chain links, it'll teach you the different kinds of summoning mechanics, things like that. But it definitely doesn't teach you what you're getting into, especially if you just go out and buy a starter structure deck, which the premise of those hasn't changed in 25 years. And I think that's a little bit of a problem in and of itself. Yes, they've become more competitive, but you still have to buy three. Magic is a great example of what to do. If you want to play standard, I believe it's standard. I haven't played Magic in a hot minute, but they used to sell tournament ready decks that were $20 in stores. You could just buy that and play in the tournament that night if you already knew mechanics and everything. But Magic's onboarding experience is so much simpler in that aspect. And it's pretty easy to learn. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a much more difficult game. We don't have keywords or anything like that, and we don't have a mana system, which I like, but I know a lot of people complain about. But that's something for a different topic of a different day. I don't do a lot of these discussion videos. In fact, I think I've maybe done one before this. You'll notice these 4 cards here. These 4 cards are going to be flipped over shortly to represent what you can do to get into the game. Something that you'll notice is I'm a budget channel. I build my decks really cheaply and things like that. My expensive cards that I had, I've either pulled, and you guys have seen me pull them, my Pot of Prosperities and things like that. Amazing. I pulled those on a video. You can go back and watch. I traded for the last one. I pulled 2 in one video, and then the last one I got when I pulled an ultimate rare Ray at a tournament and traded for it. I've picked up things like Fenrir's at Nationals as people were scrubbing out and selling their decks. There's moments where you can get really good deals picking up Fenrir's for, $15 because the people just want them gone kind of thing. Great moments, great areas to do things like that. But that's not always the case for some people. Some people just have to buy their decks straight up. Sometimes structure decks aren't what you want and don't give you everything you need. I would really like to see Konami change the way they do the structure deck system. Maybe buying one gets you a competitively ready deck for at least a local level. I know there's a difference between locals, regionals, YCS, nationals. There's a big difference. Sprite Runic for Hire was one of the biggest decks at nationals this year, and haven't seen it anywhere else other than there. That was a completely different beast that I was unprepared for, and a lot of people were unprepared for. I've seen Sprite for Hire before, but never with the Runic engine thrown in. That was just a whole different level of what? But sometimes Konami doesn't prepare for how good an archetype will be and underprepares. A deck like, we'll go for example, Unchained. I absolutely love this deck. I picked this deck up while it was stupid cheap. The rare red guy, I forget his name, is now a $6 rare, and the what is it? Abomination's Prisons or whatever, the spell card, the Rhoda, is now I think $12, $15 for the cheapest as recording this video. And that is ridiculous. That does not help budget players. This deck was super cheap. They printed these guys in low rarity, and it's just gone up in price to keep budget players from having access to it. Another thing I'd like to see is another dual, what was it? Dual Overload or whatever, where they just released staples, giving easy access, a master collection of staples, doing that like once a year, to be honest. And I know Konami probably won't do it again because the secondhand market was outraged by it. The people who do the selling was outraged by it, but not the people who were buying it. The people who were buying it were absolutely amazed and happy about it. But you got all your staples, all your Ghost Girls, everything right there for a decent price. Getting into this game, half the price for your first deck isn't even the core itself. These are different decks that you can buy for under $100. Most of them for the main core probably under $50, to be honest. But your staples push you up so high. So I think something we have to do is take care of first the price issue, and then we can look more towards the onboarding issue. The onboarding has grown by leaps and bounds, but there's got to be a way for you to jump into the game and learn what a modern version of Yu-Gi-Oh! Looks like slowly and build up to playing against it. Hopefully your guys' locals are as fun as mine, and you have people that are willing to help you get in to it and everything. But we're going to go over this real quick. These are 4 decks that I've picked out that are budget friendly. You can get most of, and will keep your wallet relatively cheap. And then your staples, you have to pick and choose what staples you're able to get. We'll go over these. I think the best way for Konami to change the price of cards, by the way, is to do what Japan does. Japan does it, Magic does it, and Pokemon does it. And I would absolutely love to see where everything in a set comes common, but then you pick what's going to be a secret rare and ultra rare. But every card is available as common. Like, imagine if Fenrir was a common, a rare, a super, an ultra, and a secret. The secret one would obviously hold a lot more value. People want to make their decks pretty, want to make it shiny. But it wouldn't take away from the fact that everyone had access to it. I think one of the biggest problems in the game is you're pricing out budget players from having access to cards like Pot of Prosperity, which can sometimes make or break a deck. Sometimes having that Pot of Prosperity helps bolster a deck by 100%. You can take some of these decks, and Pot of Prosperity would help these decks immensely. Some of them anyways, at least 2 of them. But I don't think any budget player who's going to pick one of these decks is going to jump into the game and just throw the money for Pot of Prosperity. That seems a little ridiculous. Having to pay $400 to $1,000 to jump into the game just to be able to play with friends, if nothing else, or just to be able to go to a locals and have your deck even somewhat viable, I think that's ridiculous. But if Pot of Prosperity had came in, we'll say they picked 3 rarities. It came in common, or heck, we'll even bump it up. It came in super, ultra, and secret. The secret's obviously going to still hold that $50 price range. People want it. People want the pretty. But it won't keep budget players from being able to access that super rare and having access to it and playing it. The super rare might have been a $10 card, but that's a lot more affordable than a $50 card. Anyways, that'll bring me into what I think one of the first easiest decks to get into this game with is, staying on a easy budget, is probably Salamangreat right now. This little guy. You see him. He's the weasel. I should move these over just a little. There we go. There we go. I should have centered that a little better. That's my fault, guys. Sorry. But the Fire set just released. The Fire set is $35. Buying 1 box gets you everything you need. You don't even have to have the new cards to play that deck. But to keep it more budget friendly, instead of buying an access code talker, you can get 2 of the new Phoenix guy, the Link 4. Absolutely amazing. Great for the game and very friendly on the budget. I don't know what that is. Get off of my mat. Very friendly on the budget. And then, truthfully, I've tested the deck with only 1 Salamangreat of Fire. You only need 1. The second one is nice, but you don't have to have it. So You can get this deck for the entire core, maybe $10, and then you have the rest of the money to spend on your staples. If you buy the Pyro Phoenix or whatever it's called, the new one, the Blazing Phoenix, I don't remember its full name, and the Salamangreat of Fire. If you choose to buy Salamangreat of Fire, you don't even have to buy the Salamangreat of Fire. But if you choose to buy the Salamangreat of Fire, as we're recording this video, they are $20. The main core of the deck is $10. So there's $30. And then the Phoenix, the new one, the Link 4, is around $6 to $7, and you need two of those, so that's $12. So that's about $42 for the whole deck, giving you around $58 to spend on staples, Ash Blossoms being $5, and then you can buy things like Effect Veiler to substitute for Infinite Impermanence and things like that. Other things that are cheaper, Called By and stuff like that. Easy to get into the game with. Phenomenal. You can budget out your staples and work your way up. There's 1,012 things you can do to upgrade this deck, from buying Signet Minings to buying Flame Buffaloes and things like that, if you want to try those out. But to just play the deck, you don't have to have a lot of those things. You can just play out of, heck, you could probably buy a box of the new set, the Fire set, Volcanic something, and just pull a core and not have to spend more than $35. The box is $35 online, and it might even get you a few extra things. But moving on, we'll go on here. Next up is Traptrix. You can still find this deck online for about $12, $12 to $15, varying on which needs. Sorry, my cat has jumped up on the desk again, and I'm trying to keep him out of the camera. Hold on a minute, guys. I apologize. You can buy these. Sorry about that. You can buy these online for cheap, get 3 of the decks, and this has been one of Konami's biggest wins. The Traptrix Structure deck was absolutely... The Traptrix Structure deck was one of Konami's absolute wins. Sorry about that. My cat is, like, really needing attention right now for some reason, but he'll be all right. He'll get it later. Don't worry about him. But this was an absolute win. Proud of Konami for this one, buying 3 of these structure decks. But the fact that I still had to buy 3, that took... They came out at about $11 a piece or so, 11 to 12, I forget off the top of my head. But that's $36 to $33 right there. So that's a lot of my budget already gone. So now I have to get other staples. Now, mind you, Ash Blossom, Called by the Grave, Feather Duster, Regeki, things like that all came in this deck. So you didn't have to get those, which was nice. So that was a help. But it would have been nice to see them just release a deck that maybe had 1 to 2 Ash Blossoms with an already prepared Traptrix core. So maybe 2 to 3 Myrmelios, 2 to 3 Mantis, 2 to 3 Sarah, all in one deck. I think that would have been phenomenal, and I think everybody and their brother would have absolutely loved that, bought one of it and been happy. Heck, some people would have still bought 3 just to have the extra fodder. If you got a whole core just off of one deck, you would have been so happy. A lot of people would have been happy. But yeah, this was a huge step forward for Konami. I hope they keep growing by leaps and bounds. Love their progress and really hope they keep it up. Our next deck, it's a little more expensive, but it's a deck that a lot of people like, and it teaches you multiple mechanics in the game. That is Sword Soul. Sword Soul is probably one of the coolest looking decks, and a lot of people will like this deck. The fact that you can still play it on a budget. You don't have to have the Baron de Fleur. Baron de Fleur is nice, but there's also no reason that Baron de Fleur should be priced out of the game. If you go to Japan and look in some of these card shops, they price things like Baron de Fleur and Access Code Talker. They're like $2 to $5 because they come in rares. They come in rares and ultras and secret. And yes, you can buy a $50 secret rare access code, or you can buy the $2 rare and still be able to play your deck. I think that's phenomenal. I think that's what we really, really need here. And I hope a lot of people keep preaching this to Konami. I think, hashtag multiple rarities or something would be something great to start on Twitter. But Sword Soul is a good deck. Teaches you multiple mechanics, and there's a million ways you can upgrade it. You can start off really cheap with a simple core and build your way up. You can upgrade it with Tennis, Apple Dragons, Ecclesias, all sorts of stuff to upgrade this deck. or you can just start off really cheap with a simple Tingy Court and just this and go. Moyes, after being re-released, are stupid cheap. A good board on the budget build. I've watched people at my locals who are on a budget build of this deck who I've helped build. You end on Sinister, which is still a form of disruption. You end on that instead of a Baron. The Grandmaster Shishao, or whatever his name is, and the Draco Berserker of the Tingy with a blackout and still 3 cards in hand. That is a really strong board to play through. You have 3 cards still in hand. You have some graveyard presence to be able to use some of that. Some of them still also end on a Monk. I forgot about that. So you end on Monk, Berserker, Shishao, and Sinister. I think that's a good inboard. That's a strong inboard. A banish of a summon, a banish of a monster effect, a monster negate, and a spell and trap banish that both inflict 1200. You've probably already done 1200, so that's a lot of damage right there. Plus you have follow-up and possible hand traps in hand because you drew a bunch of cards, and you have a pop 2 because of blackout. That's a lot of disruption and a lot of play on a budget deck. I think that's fantastic. So we've covered 3 completely different decks. I think that's really good also for the game. These 3 decks, while all similar, yet different. Sword Soul Tingy has Synchro and Xyz, Traptrix has Xyz and Link, and Salamangreat at this point has Synchro, Xyz, and Link. Absolutely phenomenal. I think all 3 of these decks hit different categories that people want, different play styles, and are pretty easy to learn. Once you learn Salamangreat's mainstream combo, you just do it again. Your opponent breaks your board, you do it again, and again, and again, and again. Traptrix, a little harder to learn, but not super hard. Your inboard's usually the same in every build of Traptrix, no matter what. There's a million different ways to upgrade this deck, including a Synchro variant, or you can move to the Therion variant. Would be great. And Sword Soul, we've already gone over the different ways you could upgrade this, but there's a lot of different things you can do with the deck too. If you're just wanting to upgrade rarities too, but you like the deck, this is a deck that you'll be able to fall back on too. Maybe you build it, maybe you play it for a month and start working on another deck, or you win enough that you get another deck, and then you can fall back to this at, say, next format, this gets hit. All these decks are different, and the last deck's even more different than the rest of them, but it's still a budget deck. And I absolutely love the fact that there are these decks that you can jump into the game with. You can learn different mechanics, and they're all different and give you different play styles. These are decks that Konami should print. These are decks that people will enjoy and people can play on a budget and get into the game. The last deck is not a fan favorite of anybody's but me. So I'm guessing most of you already guessed it, but it's Floowandereeze. And I know a lot of people don't like this deck, but you can get into this game on a budget without having to learn a ton of the mechanics with this deck. The most expensive card for this deck, as of recording this video, was $12. You need 3 of it. The rest of the deck is maybe $5. You can buy Pot of Extravs as your budget option, as opposed to Prosp, for $1 a piece. They work just as well. I've already played them. You guys have watched me win matches and things that I've posted. These are all budget decks, all great alternatives. I really hope Konami pays attention to at least some of the YouTubers. I know I'm small, I know nobody's really paying attention to me, but something I would love to see from Konami is budget-friendly options like these. I would like to see a staple set released maybe once a year where Konami, they can do their money grab. It's whatever. They could call it a money grab. I don't even care. But they re-release staples, Ash Blossom, Ghost Spell, Ghost Ogre, Called By, in some master set. They could just pick 20 of them. They don't have to do a big box. 20 staples, or, heck, even freaking 15. People would be happy with that. And just throw them in. I think Triple Tax is something that should be in everybody's hand. I think Pot of Prosperity should be in everybody's hand. I think these kinds of cards, I don't think Thrust should have ever been printed. Thrust is not an okay card, especially being in such a high rarity. If that card isn't available to everyone, that card shouldn't be available to anyone. These are problems that Konami will have to deal with over time. Hopefully we see more and more improvement. Konami, again, has done a great job of improving over the years. Our onboard experience is getting better, and I hope this list of decks helps more people get on board to the game. This is a game I love. This is a game I've played forever, and I can't wait to see more and more people at my locals playing the game, enjoying the game, learning the game. Absolutely love when a new person comes in. We had 2 guys who are at an army base near me come into the shop, ask what we were playing. They sat down and they're excited to learn the game. They're talking about coming to more tournaments and stuff like that. They're asking for deck ideas, and that's what kind of inspired this video. And I hope a lot of you guys like this kind of video. If you do, we might do more discussions like this in the future of things and ways for Konami to improve. It's not really my thing, but it could be. I can blabber on, I know, which I apologize for, but this is something that needed to be said. Konami needs to hear, and truthfully, I think a lot of players are thinking right now. The thing that started this whole thing about is Yu-Gi-Oh's onboarding experience awful was a simple tweet from somebody who said the Pokemon World Championship deck, the winner, his deck was $30. Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic players, come join us. So that was a big thing for a lot of people, and that sparked this whole thing. Is Yu-Gi-Oh too expensive? Is Yu-Gi-Oh too hard to get into? This game is a lot more complicated than the other 2 games, so it takes a lot for people to want to get into it in the first place. But then being blocked behind a paywall after you've decided, hey, I'd like a challenge more so than Magic or Pokemon, because those games are so much easier and so much more simpler, but I'd like something a little more challenging, so I'm going with Yu-Gi-Oh. To find out that you're then blocked behind a $500 paywall to play some of the budget decks, we'll say $200, $300 paywall, because Floowandereeze at its max power is expensive. 3 Prosperities and everything is expensive. We'll say that's probably one of the most expensive ones here if you want to max it out and get it to its full potential. That's just such a turnoff for people. And I can offer budget alternatives all day, but eventually this is something Konami needs to look at and needs to fix. It's okay to have like an archetype that has 2 or 3 secret rares. Congratulations. You have an archetype with a bunch of secret rares. Maybe that is your moneymaker, but staples should never be that much. Staples should always be in a common slot. If everybody's going to want them and want to play them, and they need to be played equally in every deck for everybody to have a fair chance, that should be available to everyone. Those commons, if Triple Tax or Triple Tactics Thrust was a common, that still probably would have been a $10 common. Called By, for a while when it first came out, was a $5 common because it was that good of a card. These cards will still hold some value, but they'll be accessible. And that's something I hope to see more of in the future. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was a little more serious than what I normally do. You'll have to let me know if you like this video. You'll have to let me know if you want to see any of these profiles. I've already done Floowandereeze, and I have Salad built and Traptrix built. I don't have all of Sword Soul yet, but I have somebody who would probably trade it to me in a heartbeat. So we'll look at that, and we'll look at getting things together. Let me know what you want to see down in the comments. Remember to like, subscribe, and also let me know in the comments how bad I'm doing. Until then, guys, I'll see you next time.